Gamers, we're back with another one, and today we're going to be talking about House of Lancaster. I'm going to give you guys my honest opinion after about almost 2 weeks of playing with it, playing against it, trying to figure out stuff and everything else. I already did a video on Knights Templar, so if you want to check that out, it's out there on my YouTube. Feel free to do so. Now, House of Lancaster. Now, this civ is very controversial right now, and I feel like it will be for a very, very long time. I think all the hate in the lower league that English got is kind of absorbed by House of Lancaster, and I suspect it will be like that for a very, very, very long time. So, what casual players dislike about English is that English players can just sit in their base, make farms, go white tower and camp, and they don't know how to break them, and it's just kind of not fun to play against English. Well, funnily enough, the English variant, which is House of Lancaster, even though a lot different in terms of units and mechanics and everything, is actually playing very, very similar to English, at least in the lower levels, and people are not happy. What is my opinion on that? I think that House of Lancaster as a civ variant, especially the English variant, is different compared to some of the previous variant civs that we've had, where it's like French and JD, like basically the same, Jushi and China, pretty much the same. House of Lancaster is different than English. I would say the beginning part is kind of you're just camping, but they got a lot of unique units, a lot of unique bonuses, which I think is really cool, and it makes it different, but there is a bit of a design problem, and that problem is obviously manners. I already talked about this a little bit on my stream, and I already gave feedback for the devs regarding this. I think that House of Lancaster, recently got nerfed, and I'm sure it's going to be adjusted more in the future because some things are still a bit too strong. So balance-wise, it's not there yet. It's not fully cooked. But there's one thing that is kind of stopping the civ for being more creative and just having more things to do and kind of expand the gameplay, because I think it is the easiest civ in the game right now by far. I don't think there's any civ that's simpler than this, because there's a lot of civs like French where it's like, well, you just make knights and archers and you go, but at least you have to attack, right? At least you're active on the map. You gotta secure food, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. With House of Lancaster, you're just sitting in your base making 9 manners right now. Sometimes 6 and then units, but you kind of get the point. And there's no real decision making. And if there's no decision making in an RTS game, then that's kind of weird, right? If you're just doing one thing every single game, that's a bit weird. If you don't need to adjust, you don't gotta do anything, that's not great. So, in the current state, basically, if you're getting all in, you can make 3 manners safely, and then you can make units and try to hold an all-in. If the opponent is not attacking, you can just go 9 manners. And after that, you're just, after making 9 manners, your economy is going to be great, and you can just pump out units. So it's very straightforward. Now, the problem with this is the gameplay that it creates, and what your opponent needs to do is not fun, in my opinion, for either side. Because you're just sitting there, you're passive. AOE4 is a lot about fighting about the, on the resources on the map, and you just don't need any resources until like you hit castle and later on. So you're just kind of sitting in your base, and the fact that they have feudal landmark that is a keep is also a problem, because it just kind of pushes that problem further, where if they didn't have a keep in the feudal age, then you would have to make units to mine gold or stone, but because it is the way it is, it just makes things even less interesting and easier to do. So, the manor, I think, is the biggest issue of the civilization. Once you hit feudal age, it's just always the same. Now, there's 2 landmarks, and the sad part is the Abbey of Kings is a really interesting landmark, and on top of that, really strong landmark. So, Abbey of Kings is not a weak landmark, and that's the reason why no one's going for it. Abbey of Kings is actually super, super strong landmark. And I would even put it as like one of the best landmarks in the game in feudal age. But because Lancaster Castle is insanely good at what it does, which it basically allows you to do a manor boom with making 0 units, you will never see Abbey of the Kings. My proposition to devs was very simple regarding to change the way the civ plays. Not necessarily nerf manors in a way of like nerf the numbers or something that they generate, I do think that manors in Imperial income is way too high. So for those that don't know, manors are, was it 1,300 resources per minute in Imperial? I think it's that, right? 1,300 resources per minute in Imperial with 9 manors, which is just crazy. Now, there are some civilizations that also have crazy passive income, like Malians, right? They have almost 1,000 food per minute from cows, and then they have pit mines. So they go about, I think, 1.7, something like that, 1.6, 1.61% K resource per minute, which is crazy good, right? So what is the problem? Well, the Malian units are not as good, so them having higher income or higher pop because they don't need as many villagers because of cows is okay because their units are not as good, right? The problem with House of Lancaster is you have 1,300 food, wood / gold per minute, and your units are very strong, right? So this just does not add up. The units with the most overpowered, the civs with the most overpowered units should have the weakest economies because that's kind of the RTS thing, right? And a civ that has very weak units should have very good economy to make up for the fact that their units are bad, right? And in Lancaster, that rule does not follow, and their income is crazy, and their units are crazy good. So another problem is, on top of that, they have an Age 4 landmark that gives them another, I think it's now nerfed, and it's about 900 resources per minute, or 800. So they have a total income of 2,000, 2,100, 2,200 resources per minute, which is absolutely insane, right? That is absolutely crazy. It doesn't make sense to compare them to Malians. Every single civilization is comparable to one another. That's how the devs designed the civs. Every landmark and everything they're doing gives you X amount of resources per minute. That's how they've balanced a lot of the landmarks and stuff. So if a landmark has way more value than the other landmarks at that age, that means that something ain't right. And these are not even landmarks, by the way. These are just manors. So I think House of Lancaster in general has way too much passive income, and the Wingard Palace also gives you way too many resources per minute for what it does, which is what it does is really good. It's insanely strong landmark. So because of that, I'm sure you've already seen not only my games but other games where people are playing with like 50 workers in Imperial and winning games, or 40 workers, and it's like you're like, where are the units coming from? Like, what is actually happening, right? And I've had games like those. Other people had games like those, and the issue is too much passive income. So my suggestion to devs, going back to it the third time, was to make it so that you can only build 3 manors in Feudal Age. This way, it creates a lot more interesting gameplay, okay? So, for example, if you were only able to make 3 manors in Feudal Age, that would mean that a second town center would give you better value long term, but if you go 3 manors, you get that income immediately, so it gives you better income short term, and you don't have to go for food and wood as much. So there's some interesting things you can do there. And then there's a choice, right? There's a choice. Do I go 2TC? Do I go manor into units? Do I go manor into age up? Right? There's something there, right? There's a difference. There's choice to be made. And then I said, once you hit castle, you can make 2 more manors if you upgrade it, and then in Imperial, 2 more manors with the third or with the second upgrade for the manors. I personally think that the amount of manors should be nerfed to 7, because I think 9 is just too much. It is too high, it gives way too much income in Imperial, and it's a problem. The number per age limitation is because having 9 manors in Feudal Age is insane. Like, it's just insane, and it creates for very one-dimensional play as of right now. So another thing that I like is Lancaster Castle would be used for a different purpose. Instead of using Lancaster Castle to just freely make 9 manors, you can maybe, if you have a really good spawn where you have deer and gold and berries, you can use Lancaster Castle to kind of secure that area and then build 3 manors, and then you go on to do whatever. And What's interesting about it, or you can go 2TC with it, right? But what's interesting about it is it opens up Abbey of the Kings now. Because if you can only make 3 manners in Feudal, that means that going Abbey and having Lords will still allow you to go for second TC or just go allow for 3 manners. But suddenly there's a different type of gameplay. With Lords, you want to be more active, you want to move out on the map because you have these Lords that give you HP. It creates a lot more engaging gameplay in Castle and Imperial because each Lord gives 5% HP to your army. So it creates like an interaction with your opponent, a unique interaction where the opponent has to snipe your Lords and you have to keep them alive because if you lose them, your whole army loses 20% HP, which is quite high. So because of that, I think limiting manners would not only reduce the overpowered kind of camp playstyle where you do nothing and you're just winning, but also it would open up Abbey of Kings to actually be used in games and to have a Lancaster Castle and Abbey a choice. Another thing that I think is incredibly strong right now, this is specifically I would say at the top level, not so much in lower leagues, which is the Demi-Lancer Levy. Which is the thing where for each manor you have, you get a Demi-Lancer plus 2 extra. So once you build 9 manors, you get 11 Demi-Lancers. Why is this a big deal and why is this a problem? This is, at the competitive level, in my opinion, completely broken mechanic, and I'll explain why. Demi-Lancers are actually nerfed now, and they do only 8 damage and 16 charge damage, which is very little. That's like Horse does 8 damage, right? So it's very little. So what is the problem? Why is that overpowered if they're not that strong? Well, in an RTS game, if you go for economy, you don't have units, okay? If you are greedy and you go for economy, you have extra economy, but you don't have tech and you don't have units. If you go for fast castle, you have fast castle, but you don't have economy and you don't have units. If you make mass army, you don't have tech, you don't have economy, but you have mass units, right? It's very simple. The problem is with Levy Demi-Lancers thing, where I just explained what it is, you boom up to absurd greediness level, and then you instantly summon 11 units, right? Which breaks everything about RTS. Like, that's not how RTS games work. You cannot be greedy. Like, imagine that there was a civ that makes 3 town centers and just spawns, like, 15 archers. Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? Like, you go super greedy, but then you have units to defend yourself. And at a competitive level, this is even worse because not only you get units for very cheap, you also get raiding units. So if you go 9 manners and your opponent goes 2 TC, this is another issue. The opponent has to make either knights or spears in order to deal with your Demi-Lancers, most of the time spears, but you actually have no intention of going cavalry after, so you force the opponent to go into spears, and then you just go infantry, and you can do so much raiding and harassing, denying relics, denying resources with them, and you got them for extremely cheap for what they do. Extremely cheap. And the suggestion that I am making, which is to limit manners to 3 in Feudal Age, would also limit the amount of Demi-Lancers you get to 5. So you wouldn't be able to get more than 5, which I think would solve that problem quite a bit, because if there's 11 Demi-Lancers, you kind of have to go spears. If there's 5 of them, I mean, you can get away with some careful gameplay, maybe a tower or 2, so it's not that big of a deal, because opponent invested 500 resources, you can make that a bit cheaper, right? But suddenly, you don't need to be like, oh, 11 units are coming at me and I need to prepare or I'm going to lose villagers, right? Even though they didn't make any production buildings. So, I think that the 3 manor in Feudal, 2 in Castle, and 2 Imperial would solve so many of the problems strategically. And it would expand the House of Lancaster gameplay, I think, quite a bit, in my opinion. And it would make it for interesting choices like, okay, you go for manors in Feudal. If you age up to Castle, do you immediately get the extra 2 manors? Do you delay them? Do you skip until Imperial, and then in Imperial you create more manors? Like, what is the interaction there? Because this way it's like, okay, I make 9 manors and I don't worry about it anymore. Another suggestion that I've seen a lot of people make is that you can make manors similar to pit mines. And this is another potential fix for manors, where you have to spread out your manors. And this can actually work as well in order to nerf them, so that would be okay too. Basically limiting the space that manors can be placed in. So think of it like, let's say you can make 9 manors still, right? Let's say you can make 1 manor here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. Suddenly, not only they're spread out, but they're very vulnerable, right? Even though they have arrow slits, they're very vulnerable. And then the other manors you would have to put like here, here, here. So that way there's a counterplay, right? You can snipe off manors, they're in more vulnerable spots. The fact that all the manors are just in the same spot and they're all shooting arrow slits is kind of having like a keep in feudal age that the opponent can't run through because there's so many arrow slit towers basically attacking you. So there's ways to fix manors. I don't think manors are necessarily like their defensiveness is overpowered, or their income in Imperial I think is too strong and in income overall. But like I said, if they were more spread out, or if you limit the amount that you can make, suddenly it's not as bad as it is right now. So I think that would solve a lot of problems in the game, and that's something that I wish devs addressed, because just nerfing the income on the manor, let's say again they nerf income on the manor, it doesn't solve the problem that I'm talking about right now, which is just kind of inactive AFK gameplay. Because I compared this civ to Malian quite a few times, and Malian is very similar in a way. They want to do a cow boom, right? But there's a difference. Even though they're building cows in their base, and even though they're camping, you actually have to protect your gold with Malian. And not only that, if you want to build another gold pit, you have to go out on the map in order to build the pit mine on the gold, right? You cannot just sit on 1 gold with no units. You have to make units, right, to defend it. And House of Lancaster does not, because of the Lancaster castle, and because of the manors getting arrow slits as well. So there's a bit of a just weird interaction, weird gameplay with that I think is not very good. Okay, now that we've covered manors, let's go on to the next thing. So I think their yeomen are very good. Very, very good. And I think that they do too many things at the same time. I find myself rarely, if ever, going for crossbows with House of Lancaster. I mean, this game I have 64 of them. Because why would you make crossbows when you can just mass yeomen that have higher movement speed? You can kite, right? You can kite the enemy knights or cavalry. You can make some spearmen. And then every time the enemy units clump up, you can just do the money shot and you wipe out 20 archers like I did earlier. I wiped out like 10, 12 archers just with 1 click, right? So yeomen are just too good at everything. That's the problem. They have more range. They're faster than other units like archers and spearmen. And on top of that, they have the money shot. So there's no weakness there, right? Like for example, English longbows, their weakness is once you catch up to them, they're dead, right? Yeomen are harder to catch because they have higher movement speed. So I feel like they have it a bit too good in terms of everything, right? So the problem is not that they're too strong. The problem is they're killing the role of crossbowmen as like, well, I could make crossbows, but I could just make more yeomen, and I counter the enemy like that. Even if you're facing men-at-arms, you can just make spearmen that reduce the armor of the enemy by 1/1, and that makes yeomen even better. So, yeah. So anyway, let's talk about the other units and the other mechanics that they have. So I think feudal landmarks got some potential. Like I said, Lancaster Castle, a bit weird, but I think manor is the issue there. And I think Abbey is a really cool landmark, and I really wish people get the chance to use it more, because I think it's pretty cool. Now, next thing, their castle landmarks. So their castle landmarks are a bit weird to me, and I'm gonna pause the game here for a second. So they have King's College and they have White Tower. Now, White Tower to me is pretty weird because White Tower from English is a keep, right? So you usually go White Tower with English if you go 2 town centers. And it serves as a defensive structure to kind of block the enemy attacks. And on top of that, you can produce units out of it, right? So it's like a production building and a keep, right? The problem with House of Lancaster White Tower is it's just a White Tower. It's just a keep. And it spawns 3 Earl's Guards when you make it, right? And I mean, maybe we'll use it if we do 2 town center builds more, but it just feels very at the end of the day. Like, okay, it's a keep. It's like basically making this one right here, making a 900 stone keep. And it's not very like impressive, and it's not very, I feel like, interesting to make, right? So not about balance, it's just not very interesting. The other landmark, which is King's College, is pretty much an auto landmark at this point. Like I said, maybe if we have 2 town center builds, and maybe you'll do White Tower to protect yourself against timing pushes. But this right here is already the reason enough. Like if this landmark had nothing else, and then it just has this, it's already worth it, because all your research is 15% cheaper. Like not just economy, all of it. Right? So it's very good. Just this bonus is very, very good. Now, you have a lot of unique upgrades, which I think is cool, but why does this landmark get everything? Like, why don't we have, I don't know, like, why don't we have Werewolf Trebuchet and, I don't know, this in White Tower? Right? So that there's at least some power balance switch to White Tower, or maybe give White Tower something else. I don't know. Even if it's like just, you can just make Earl's Guards from there, that would still be good. At least something, right? This way, this landmark seems better in every way possible because of the amount of gold that it saves you, or resources, sorry. But you also have these things as well, which is, this is for knights, this is for horsemen, this is for trebuchet, this is for hand cannoneers. This is for all your units bonus damage. So it's like, this landmark literally buffs all your units if you go for it. So if you go White Tower, you actually just lose on all of these, and you lose on 15% resources that you're paying now fully for upgrades. So to me, it doesn't make sense. Maybe this should be transferred to White Tower so that this thing has unique upgrades. The White Tower has unique text. Or has the 50% discount. I don't know, but this one just seems way, not necessarily overtuned. I think that the White Tower is just undertuned, right? Like even going for this, where your hand cannoneers are 25% cheaper, even if it's for only Imperial, which you can make hand cannoneers in Castle Age with this, but having hand cannoneers cost from 120 to 90 is already insane value that you're getting, right? And on top of that, you get all these other things. So yeah, so again, it's not about balance, it's just that White Tower just seems kind of meh. Whereas, like I said, Abbey in Feudal, it's not that it's bad, it's that Manners in Lancaster is too good, and I can see once that gets adjusted perhaps in the future, people will use Abbey more. I just don't see in which situation you don't use this, is basically what I'm trying to say. And then we have their unique men-at-arms, which are Earl's Guards. I think they're pretty cool. I enjoy them. The way they work is pretty cool. They can get bonus damage. If you have keeps, they get bonus attack damage, which affects their dagger throw ability and their auto attack. The dagger throwing ability is pretty cool as well. They're kind of like a Donzo man-at-arm, which is pretty nice. Yeah, I like them. Got nothing against them. Now, they're horsemen, and I'll talk about this a little bit. Hobilars. I'm gonna be completely honest. We don't know anything about these horsemen. And when I say we, I mean like, not just pro players, like we as a community. Because right now, you don't make this because the other units are so strong. So like, yeomen are so strong, spearmen are strong, man-at-arms are strong, and this whole playstyle revolves around mass infantry. So you actually don't really go horsemen at all, which I actually think these horsemen are really strong with this upgrade specifically. We just don't have a style that kind of incentivizes going for them yet, because of all the issues that I've talked about previously. But their horsemen are pretty cool because they require gold to make and not wood. So kind of different, right? Their knights also have 6 more damage with this upgrade against heavy armored units. So it's very good in like knights versus knight battles. And this is kind of like a must-have almost on water, because your Carrax gets 20% damage, 20% health, and 20% range, which is obviously very, very good and very, very strong. Imperial landmarks. Imperial landmarks for... I guess I can unpause now. Imperial landmarks for House of Lancaster are very similar, in my opinion, to castle landmarks. Wingard Palace is absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane what it does. And then on the other side, you have Berkshire. And that Berkshire, again, spawns 3 Earl's Guards, but you cannot produce out of it. It doesn't really do anything. It does have a unique thing where increases the maximum damage granted by House Unified to +6, which means that your Earl's Guards and I think Demi Lancers will now be able to go to +6 damage instead of +4 damage, right? Which is alright, but it is no reason to go Berkshire for that. And the problem is, the other landmark, Wingard Palace, is absolutely, absolutely crazy. Like, even if manners get nerfed, that landmark is just nuts. Now, obviously, Wingard Palace, English also has it. The difference with English Wingard Palace and House of Lancaster is House of Lancaster actually gives you the same units that you kind of already have, just in a lot better deal, right? And it also gives you Ribaldic Wind, which you don't have, and it gives you Demi Lancers, which you cannot normally produce. So why is this strong compared to English? Well, English has a few drawbacks, if you will. The first Wingard Palace army is basically similar to English. With English, you get, I think, 1 spearman, 1 longbow, 1 man-at-arm, 1 crossbow, if I'm not mistaken. And you get a trebuchet. Or maybe you get a horseman. I can't remember. Maybe you get a horseman. Something. You get like 3-4 units and you get a trebuchet. With House of Lancaster on the other side, you get 2 spearmen, 2 crossbows, and a trebuchet. So it is same cost, and you're pretty much getting the same deal. I'm gonna pause right here before the game ends. So you're pretty much getting the same deal, right? This one right here. And it takes 55 seconds to create. It's efficient, it's good, but you know, it's nothing crazy. Now this is where the problem starts coming in. Earl's Retinue. Now English also has this, where they summon 3 knights and 3 horsemen. So the English one is terrible. So why is that? The reason why English one is terrible is because English one gives you 3 knights and 3 horsemen that if you have not made so far, you need to actually upgrade them, right? So it doesn't give you Imperial horsemen and knights. It gives you whatever the tech you're currently on. It gives you those horsemen and those knights. And you still need to kind of invest into stables and invest into upgrading knights and invest into upgrading horsemen to get full value out of this, right? On the other side, for House of Lancaster, you're getting 6 Demi Lancers and 2 Hobilars, and Demi Lancers did get nerfed recently, but they are elite, they are upgraded, right? So you don't need to upgrade Demi Lancers, so they're already coming out as elite, which is pretty good. And you get 2 Hobilar, which same as English, does need to be upgraded in order to be elite. So this was recently nerfed. The reason it was nerfed is because Demi Lancers got nerfed, so this is not as good as it used to be. Before, you could just spam Earl's Retinue and you just kill your opponent with basically Imperial Knights that are a bit weaker than normal Knights, right? So this is nerfed and this is now okay. Garrison Command. You get 8 Spearmen, which is 640 resources, and you get Earl's Guard, which is another 120 resources. So you get 760 resources for 450. Now, this is the value that you're kind of getting through this landmark, right? So you're what is that? 760. So you're getting what? 310 resources, and you can do this twice a minute. So this one gives you 620 resources per minute. Someone in the chat can fact check me on that. 620 resources per minute. So that's pretty good. If you need spearmen fast, if you're getting overwhelmed or something, you can just pop these and you're good to go, right? Still, you're getting spearmen 824.6 resources per minute with Military Academy. Okay, there you go. So you get 820 resources per minute with this, with Military Academy. Now, you're getting a lot of resources, but you're getting like trash units, right? You're getting units that you get 20 gold and you get a bunch of food and wood, which is like, but you don't get a bunch of wood, you get a little bit of wood, but you get a bunch of food saved up, which is not a big deal because it's food. Every 7 late game has a shit ton of food. Now the real issue is this. Now this is nerfed recently, and Psycho, do you know the exact resources per minute you're getting with this? This is the issue that makes manners plus this too strong. So this is recently nerfed to where it's supposed to, it was giving 1,200 I think resources per minute or 300 resources per minute, and now it gives I think like 900 or something like that. Psycho is gonna double check that. So why is this one an issue? Why is this one not an issue? It's not about it giving more resources per minute. Okay, it gives 828 resources per minute. Okay, so so this one gives 824, this one gives 828. So same, right? The problem is this gives you gold and wood, and this gives you food and wood. So this one is just better. And it allows you to build Beastyqt, which you normally cannot. So House of Lancaster does not have access to Beastyqt. So if you've played this civ, and if you're massing like spearmen, yeomen, which are food, wood, super cheap, right? They're trash units. You can literally just queue 5 of these out, and you get just insane, massive siege army very efficiently. And this is not a reason why House of Lancaster doesn't need a lot of workers right now, because on top of the manors, you also have this landmark that gives you extra passive income, right? Because it's more efficient armies. Again, same way as Castle, I don't see a world where you actually go Berkshire, because this landmark is too good for what it does, and it gives you different unique choices that are all actually good, to the point where it's just an auto build for this one. Like, you're not going to go Berkshire. It doesn't give you enough. It's just a keep at the end of the day, right? Again, English, you know, you go Berkshire, you still have... You can take map control, you can make units out of it, you can make Berkshire in the middle of the map and make trebs out of it. There's like a lot of stuff you can do with it. But another thing is, with English, the Windguard Palace is not always good. Because Windguard Palace for English summons unique units that you normally cannot make. Similar to Demi-Lancers, but they're very expensive. And you get, someone can remind me if you know in the chat the cost for Windguard Rangers. But you get 6 Rangers, I think it's like 600-700 resources, right? Someone on the chat from top of their head. And you get unique Footmen, which also you cannot produce, but you also get just 6. All these things give you, first of all, more units. It's 700 resources, yeah. So Rangers are 450 wood, 250 gold, and you get 6 of them, right? Rangers you don't get at a discount. You're not getting them more efficiently. You're just allowed to make them, right? And you're not getting absurd amounts. 6 Rangers is not like a game ender. Obviously, if you get to 50 Rangers or 30 or 40 Rangers, that's a big deal. But in order for you to get there, that is a lot of resources spent, right? That's why it's very different, because House of Lancaster won't give you like immediate value. And then the other unit you can make is the Footmen, and the Footmen are 300 food, 400 gold. So again, you shouldn't look at it like, oh, but you're getting these really strong units. You're not saving gold. You're actually spending gold. Does that make sense? So with Windguard Footmen, you're paying 300 food, which is whatever, right? You're English, you have food. You're using 400 gold for 6 men-at-arms. They're men-at-arms, they're a bit better than men-at-arms. Not a bit, they're quite a bit better than men-at-arms. But do you want to spend 400 gold on 6 men-at-arms? That is, what, 65 gold per man-at-arm. English men-at-arms are already really good, right? They have the armor chat upgrade, which gives them extra armor. So this is another reason why, and rangers, right? They're very good, but you already have longbows. So they are better men-at-arm, and they are better longbows, but you are actually paying resources for them. You're not saving resources. So this is why when you play English, you do go Windguard Palace, sometimes if you're like in a really good spot, but most of the time, even not only in low league games, but even in top level games, you go for Berkshire, because Berkshire will allow you to secure parts of the map and defend it. Whereas Windguard can kind of, if you're already having a massive lead, you can go Windguard and extend your lead by making stronger units. This landmark can bring you back from the dead because of all the resources it saves, and because of this landmark, you can use less workers. English, with their Windguard Palace, they don't need to make less workers because of it. They're just getting access to different types of units that are very expensive, right? So that's kind of the issue. And I don't really know what the plan is for the future. I don't know if devs are happy with this, but I think a little bit of a mark has been missed with the keep landmarks. I think they need something else. I know, you know, I know this might sound crazy, but I actually think they don't necessarily need to buff like damage or something on the keeps, but they gotta give them something else. Make them a reason for me to go for them. If you go for King's College, make that be a thing for cavalry and make White Tower a buff for infantry. You know, like something. Because right now it's just a keep, and then a Berkshire is a better keep. And then the other two landmarks are just crazy value, right? So I don't know. I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect there, I guess. Because I do feel that English landmarks are done a lot better in a way that there are times where you go King's Palace is English and Castle. There are times where you go White Tower, right? They both have their use. Same thing with Berkshire and Windguard. They both have their use. Same thing with Council Hall at Abbey. They both have their use. And right now, as it is with House of Lancaster, I feel it's just all tied with manors. It's like intertwined to like fucking oblivion in manors. And manors are just dictating everything you're gonna do from the start to the end. It's personally, like, all that being said, it is pretty hard to say if White Tower or Berkshire is just bad, completely bad, and it has no use, or because of the situation we have right now with the manors, the other two are just an obvious choice. Maybe if House of Lancaster did more to town center, maybe the other maybe White Tower would be more used defensively to hold on pushes, and maybe Berkshire would be used to secure the maps, the map locations, whether it's big gold or whatever. I don't know. So I think in order to actually see that and to see the meta developed and for something to happen there, I think manors would need to be addressed somehow. And I think not only it doesn't create interesting gameplay for the top level, but I think this civilization will be a massive problem at lower levels. I have said this like day 2 of creator preview during the subathon. I think this civ will be a massive problem on release. Everyone told me, yo, you need to chill, let people figure it out, let people play a little bit. There's been like 10 complaints, posts daily just on Reddit about House of Lancaster, that it's not fun, it's not interactive to play against, and people hate it. So yeah, I honestly believe that all these problems start with the manors and end with manors, and until we see those change somehow, hopefully, I think we're just locked into where we're at now, and probably locked in like this for a while. So overall, I am glad that it's not more similar to English in terms of like, it's just longbows and it's just, you know, network of citadels and stuff like that. It is different, but somehow the play styles have kind of joined forces a little bit, which I'm not a big fan of. Anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, I want to thank you so much for watching. Check me out on Twitch. I'm literally, probably, most likely, literally live right now. And if you're watching on Twitch, let's keep going.